Hey, thanks for tuning in to Gursky's Garage. Well, today I got a 1999 Ford E150 Econoline van in the shop. This has the 4.6 V8 Triton. Well, had a little bit of a rod knock, and quite literally, we got a couple chewed up connecting rod bearings here. So, ended up doing a full set of connecting rod bearings on this van. And I just wanted to post a video on how to remove the oil pan in one of these because I don't think there's a single video out there. At least I wasn't able to find any. There's plenty on the F-150s and the Expeditions, but of course those chassis are completely different than the Econoline. They're pretty much similar, you know, with the two-wheel drives not having a removable cross member. The Econolines are pretty much similar to that, but I really didn't see anything on the actual Econoline vans themselves. The nice thing is you can remove the oil pan. It is possible without removing the engine, at least on the 4.6. The 5.4s, the engine block actually sits about 1.5 inches taller than the 4.6, but you should be able to as well. Now the V10 6.8 liter, you're not sure there, but this at least I can show you how to get the oil pan off the 4.6 and the 5.4 engine as well. First thing you want to do is disconnect your negative battery terminal and remove the throttle body housing completely. I got that over here on the bench, as you can see, because you got to give yourself enough clearance on the top of the engine, because basically what we're doing is we want to get this thing set up and ready to jack it up so we can pull the pan out. So once you disconnect the battery and remove your throttle body completely, the entire elbow, you're going to disconnect your EGR pipe from your EGR valve. There's 4 8mm bolts on the bottom that hold that in. That's pretty self-explanatory to get that off. On the back side here, if we go in the vehicle, you can see I got the doghouse cover off, and this thing is jacked way up already. But you see how high we are up here. I already got this thing up where I need to. There's this little valve here. I believe this is your evap purge valve. Anyways, this mounts right up in here, and the nuts are right under here, right on the top side here under the dash. Remove those and just flop that out of the way, so obviously that does not hit anything. And the other thing I removed up here is, let's see, the bracket to the transmission dipstick. There's a 10mm bolt that goes right there. I just removed it to kind of allow this to move around, so it wouldn't put too much stress on the actual dipstick tube itself. And of course the actual throttle body, the throttle cable bracket as well, you want to unbolt. So basically just get the top of the intake manifold cleared off, because you want to get as much clearance up here as you can. Now, once you got the top of the engine pretty much ready, as in getting the throttle body and the bracket for the throttle cable and everything else out of the way, we need to get the cooling system ready. Your lower radiator hose will stretch. It really doesn't even pull on it at all. However, your upper hose will get in the way. So what I did is undid the fan shroud. You see it's not even, we're off the radiator down there completely, and just kind of flopped it back, and I pulled the upper radiator hose off. That way when the engine is tilted way up, your fan is not hitting the shroud and breaking stuff. So I ended up draining about 2 gallons of coolant out of it. I just undid the petcock valve on the bottom of the radiator, drained 2 gallons out, and that was more than enough to drain the reservoir and, you know, get the coolant low enough to where it wouldn't come out when I took the upper hose off. So now we go underneath. And all I did to actually jack the engine up is, first of all, I got this thing jacked up on jack stands. I have a 2-post car lift in here, but my extensions aren't long enough to actually go hit the frame before it hits the running board, so I didn't bother putting it up on the hoist at all. I just jacked it up and have a couple 6-ton jack stands up on the frame rails on both sides. Obviously get this thing up high enough. These E150s, the half-ton Econoline vans, sit pretty, they sit much lower than your 3/4 or 1-ton Econoline vans, you know, the E2 or E350. So the E150s, at least I had to jack this up to, you know, be able to crawl under here and do all this. Now, to actually jack the engine up, I got my floor jack right here, and I took the back wheels off it so it wouldn't roll around. And basically, just by taking a 2x4, here's just one for example. I have one that's a bit longer sitting in the corner over there. Basically, put it right on your crank pulley there. Center it right on your crank pulley, and then get your floor jack right under it and just jack the engine up. And be careful, watch when you're doing it. And what I was able to do is basically when I got up high enough, I was able to put a 2x4 block between each motor mount. and was able to set it down on top of that. Now, to get the oil pan out, I actually got the pan out with the sump still attached. So after I put the blocks in, I jacked the engine up just like a hair more, and with the sump in place, I was actually able to slide the pan right out the back here. It is possible. It's not the easiest, trust me, but it is absolutely, it's doable. So, and while I was in here, I ended up replacing all of my connecting rod bearings, got everything torqued down to spec. This engine does have 265,000 miles, so I'm actually pleased with how the inside of this engine looks. The way those bearings look, the back three, I imagine maybe at some point in the past, maybe some water got into oil or it had contamination oil for whatever reason. The front 5 cylinders look fine. It's just the back three here, these two, and this one here was chewed up. But from here forward, all the bearings look perfect. But since I'm down here, I'm doing all of them, at least the connecting rod bearings. So that's pretty much that. It is possible. Like I said, you have to remove a few things. It'll take you like an hour to get the top of the intake and the radiator and everything else and to undo these motor mounts here. It'll take about an hour or so just to get this thing ready to get jacked up. The actual engine mount itself, you don't disconnect from the block. You just take, there's 2 18mm nuts on each side, here, same on the passenger side here. Just unbolt those there, and then like I said, once you got everything ready on top and you got your fan shroud disconnected and your upper radiator hose off, you're ready to jack this thing up. You see, I did not disconnect the exhaust or nothing, because those exhaust hoses are 25 years old, and I'm quite confident those would snap if I even tried to, so left them in place and still had enough give here to get the engine up high enough to slide out the oil pan. So it is possible. I know it sounds daunting, and trust me, it's not a straightforward job, but it is certainly possible, and you do not have to remove the engine. So let's see. So yeah, like I said, it is possible. A little while back, I did already do a lot of work to the front of this thing. I replaced the whole belt drive. I mean, everything, pretty much both the alternator and, new power steering pump, AC compressor. I had the front cover off as well as the valve covers. Basically checked all the valve train. I already replaced all the timing chains, tensioners, guides, and I even have a milling high flow oil pump in this thing. So once I get the bottom end of this thing back together, I'll slap the pan back on and top it off with the oil. This fan will be good I'm sure for at least a few more years. I'll get out of it. And it's just an old camper van, nothing too crazy. But yeah, no, like I said, you'll if you gotta get that oil pan off, it is certainly possible. So, and of course, here's the pan. I already pretty much got it all cleaned up here. Already got it washed out. So, yep, if you got an Econoline, you gotta remove that oil pan for whatever reason, whether you gotta do some work inside the engine or replace the oil pan gasket. Like I said, once many times now, it is possible. You can get it off. You're gonna have to fight it a little bit. You're gonna have the engine jacked way up, pretty much almost touching the top of the body there. Pretty close. I mean, there's only a couple inches between there now. But like I said, it's possible. You can get that thing slid out of there. So, well, hey, I hope this helps. If you got a similar Econoline or something like that, you're trying to get the oil pan off, I hope this video helps. Try to show a few pointers and try and help out there. So, well, I appreciate y'all watching, and take it easy.